Jesus of Nazareth left his followers with a terrifying warning in Matthew chapter 7. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Today, 2 billion Christians will confidently tell you that the wolf was Muhammad. 2 billion Muslims will tell you the wolf was the Apostle Paul. But we don't need to hurl empty theological insults at each other to figure out who the wolf is. Because in that exact same breath, Jesus gave us the ultimate metric to expose them. He said, "By their fruits you will know them." So today, on Ohala, we are going to do something the Sunday school teachers and apologists refuse to do. We are going to strip away centuries of dogma, step out of the Roman filter, and look purely at the historical seeds planted in the 1st and 7th centuries. If the wolf is the one who leads the flock away from the shepherd's original path, who actually hijacked the message, and who brought it back? Before we look at theology, we have to clear the historical smoke. When Christians judge the fruits of Islam, they almost always point to the sword. They claim Christianity was a religion of peaceful martyrs, while Muhammad built a religion of worldly conquest. But this requires a massive, hypocritical blind spot. It is easy to claim the moral high ground of pacifism when you are a marginalized minority hiding in the catacombs of Rome. But what happened the absolute second Christianity acquired the sword? The early Christians immediately turned on each other, exiling and murdering rival sects over the invention of the Trinity. And when the Christian empire finally crossed the Atlantic, they completely wiped out sophisticated indigenous civilizations in the Americas, justifying the genocide with papal bulls in the name of the cross. If we are judging fruit by violence, the Christian empire's hands are soaked in blood. So let's look at Muhammad with historical objectivity. Muhammad didn't launch a global crusade unprovoked. The early Muslims were fighting the Quraysh, their own tribe who had tortured them, starved them, and exiled them from Mecca into the desert. Once you build a functioning civilization in Medina, a military isn't a theological flaw. It is a fundamental requirement of statecraft to survive annihilation. Every civilization needs a shield. To find the wolf, we have to look past the battlefield and look at the theology. We have to look at the message. What is the psychological profile of a wolf in sheep's clothing? A wolf relies on deception. It relies on changing its appearance to infiltrate the flock. The Apostle Paul literally confesses to doing exactly this in 1 Corinthians 9:20. He writes, "To the Jews I became like a Jew. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law. To a pagan, I'm a pagan." He openly brags about shape-shifting his entire identity and theology depending on who is paying him attention. And look at the theological fruit he produced. Jesus was a Torah-observant, Aramaic-speaking Jewish prophet. In Matthew 19, a man asked Jesus how to get to heaven. Jesus doesn't say, "Believe I will die for you." He says, "If you want to enter life, keep the commandments." What was Paul's fruit? Paul throws out the commandments. He tells the pagans they don't need the Jewish law and invents the doctrine of faith alone. Jesus preached that God is an inherently merciful Father. He quoted the prophet Hosea saying, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice." Jesus was willing to give his life for his divine mission, but he never preached that God the Father required a human blood payment. What was Paul's fruit? Paul mutated the movement into a religion that requires a literal human blood sacrifice to appease God's wrath. He took a message of divine mercy and turned it into a pagan blood ritual, a concept that resonated perfectly with the Greco-Roman pagans he was trying to convert. Christian apologists will tell you Paul was just following the Holy Spirit, but history tells a completely different story. If you want to know what the real disciples thought of Paul, the men who actually ate, slept, and walked with the historical Jesus, look at who was running the church. It wasn't Paul. It was Jesus' own brother, James the Just. James ran the church in Jerusalem with strict adherence to the law of Moses. In Galatians chapter 2, Paul tells a story about being in Antioch. Peter is eating with non-Jews, but the moment certain men came from James arrive, Peter panics. He separates himself because he submits to the authority of James. Even Paul's own partner, Barnabas, abandons Paul. Paul is left completely isolated, screaming at Peter. And in that same letter, Paul exposes his own breathtaking arrogance. Speaking of the original disciples, Paul writes, "As for those who were held in high esteem, whatever they were makes no difference to me." He elevated his own supposed visions above the men who knew Jesus face to face. And this wasn't just a minor disagreement. Decades later, a massive sect of early Jewish Christians lived in the deserts of Arabia. They were called the Ebionites. They were the ideological descendants of James. And history records exactly what they believed. They believed Jesus was the human Messiah. They prayed facing Jerusalem. They strictly followed the law. And they completely rejected the Apostle Paul as a false prophet and an apostate. Which brings us 600 years later, to the deserts of Arabia. Christian apologists love to say that Muhammad simply copied the Bible to invent Islam. I want you to engage in tafakkur right now. Deeply analyze the logic of that claim. There is a massive historical trap in that argument. An Arabic Bible did not exist in the 7th century. The New Testament was in Greek, Latin, and Syriac. The first Arabic translations didn't appear until hundreds of years after Muhammad's death. Furthermore, if Muhammad was just a copycat trying to win over the Christians of his era, why didn't he copy them? If he copied them, Islam would have a trinity. Islam would have original sin. Islam would have a blood sacrifice. Instead, Muhammad violently rejected the Greek-Roman filter of the Apostle Paul. Think about the linguistics. Jesus didn't speak Greek. He spoke Aramaic, a sister language to Arabic. When Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, he didn't pray to a Greco-Roman concept. He prayed to Eloha. 600 years later, Muhammad bows his head in the dirt and prays to Allah. Paul built a Hellenized mystery religion for Rome. Muhammad bypassed the Roman Empire entirely and breathed life back into the original Semitic reality. If Muhammad met any Christians in the Arabian desert, he met the descendants of James the Just. This is where we apply Jesus' final metric: by their fruits you shall know them. Paul's fruit was the complete destruction of the law. Jesus literally said, "Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets." But Paul stripped it away. Look at the fruit of Muhammad. Did he abolish the rules? No. He restored them. Islam brought back the strict dietary laws through halal, mirroring the ancient kosher laws Jesus followed. Islam brought back the physical, prostration-style prayer that the ancient Jewish prophets practiced. It brought back mandatory fasting. Paul built a religion on faith alone. But what did Jesus' brother James say? Faith without works is dead. Look at the Quran. Through the practice of tadabbur, deep reflection, open the text to almost any page. Over and over again, you will find the exact same phrase: those who believe and do righteous deeds. In Islam, belief in your heart is worthless if you do not back it up with physical action. Muhammad didn't just preach, he restructured society. He banned alcohol, which destroyed families. He permanently banned riba, predatory interest and usury, to stop the rich from bleeding the poor dry, echoing Jesus, flipping the tables of the money changers. And he mandated zakat, an institutionalized charity to protect the most vulnerable. Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth as a Jewish prophet who repeated the ancient, unyielding cry of his forefathers: "The Lord our God, the Lord is one." He never asked to be worshipped. He demanded action, mercy, and submission to the Creator. When we judge by the fruits, Paul's theology eventually bore the fruit of the Trinity, a completely foreign concept to first-century Judaism, resulting in millions of people worshipping the messenger instead of the God who sent him. Muhammad's fruit was taking a fractured, polytheistic pagan world and hammering it back into the strict, unyielding monotheism of Abraham. A wolf is the one who puts on a mask, changes the rules, and leads the sheep out of the pasture. A restorer is the one who comes into the wilderness, rebuilds the fences, and points the flock back to the one true shepherd. History shows us exactly who hijacked the message. And history shows us exactly who kept it alive. If you are ready for the historical truth they left out of Sunday school, hit subscribe to Okala. We aren't here to play theological games, we are here to dig up the roots. Let me know in the comments below. Who do you think is the real wolf? I'll see you in the next one.